Today I'd like to continue our breathing conversation from the other day. As you'll recall, we talked about the expansion and contraction of your rib cage to get your diaphragm, your primary breathing muscle, to move. So today I want to take that conversation from the diaphragm down and talk to you a little bit about your core. Lots of people come to our studio looking for core strength, and a lot of them actually misunderstand what that is and how to get it. So today's our chance to build up a new relationship with your core, and you can incorporate it into your bar and Pilates classes. So the core refers to a set of muscles that lay really deep in your body. And together, they help to create a base level of stabilization for your trunk. They also hold all your organs in place. So let's just get a visual of what this would look like. So I'd like to think of the core like a ball. At the top of the ball is the diaphragm that we've already talked about. Okay, so that's your breathing muscle that bellows down and up to let the lungs expand and contract. At the base of the ball, okay, so you have the diaphragm at the top, at the bottom, you have your pelvic floor muscles. So the pelvic floor muscles run from your pubic bone in the front to your tailbone in the back at the base of your pelvis, and they run along your two sit bones. So that muscle group also contracts like the parachute in gym class, and in rhythm with your breathing, when you breathe in, the diaphragm descends and the pelvic floor also drops a little bit, and when you exhale, the pelvic floor lifts and follows the diaphragm back up. Now, the sides of the ball are created by the deepest layer of your abdominals, your transverse abdominal. And that's what people usually want when they say core strength. The transverse abdominal, as it gets stronger, it builds more endurance, and its action is compression around your trunk. So reflexively, we use that anytime we're coughing or sneezing, like that little jerk. That's cute, right? But when we're in Pilates and we're cueing you to compress your abdominal wall as you're exhaling, it's more like a gradual sensation, and that whole muscle, I mean, it's like a really big sheet. Okay, so it's running from your low back all the way around to your front, covering this whole area between the bottom of your ribs and the top of your pelvis. So in Pilates breath, when we're exhaling, it draws in gradually and three-dimensionally, so you'll feel it all around your waist. Like overly dramatic, but it's kind of like sucking in your gut to put tight jeans on. It's like that's a little more forceful. All right, so 1, 2, 3. The transverse abdominal does wrap all the way around your waist, but then ends at the fascia in your low back, the thoracolumbar fascia. So to close up that direction, imagine like a little zipper running up down your back. You have these teeny tiny muscles called multifidus, and they connect segments of the spine, like one to one or one up to the next one. And all the fibers kind of look like upside down V's, and they run all the way up your back. So that's the back of your core. So your goal, functionally, in core training is to make the strength balanced in all 4 of the muscles. So then they work in rhythm with each other, contracting and expanding as part of your breathing mechanics. And then they also play that base level of stabilization for your trunk. We'll need more muscles than that, but this is like your undershirt below everything else you're doing. And if you've ever been pregnant, that abdominal muscle is very important for supporting the growing womb. But all of us, just for our organs, that's the container that helps keep them inside. Now think about those organs for a second. So when we're breathing, there's a pressure change, and this is what I want you to contemplate today. As your lungs expand and your rib cage gets bigger, the diaphragm pushes down. If nothing else reacted in the abdominal cavity, that would also create a bunch of extra downward pressure on your organs, like let's say pushing them right out through the bottom of your pelvis. So in rhythm with the diaphragm dropping, all the other muscles I described as the core have to expand to accommodate that pressure change. This is called intra-abdominal pressure. And they expand a little bit so the organs have some room to move. So your transverse abdominal gets a little bigger, like I said before, your pelvic floor drops, and there's a little bit of give in the multifidus to allow there to still be space but integrity in the discs and the bones of the spine. So the problem is, because we don't always understand what core strength is, we might overemphasize one part of it. Like let's say our abdominals, right? We all want flat abs or for our vanity. So if we were just strengthening that muscle group without respecting the other 3, we're gonna actually cause an imbalance in pressure. And then during that pressure change through the breath, if we also add movement, we might be vulnerable to injury. So let's say your multifidus is the weak spot. You might be more vulnerable to hurt your back, like if you're lifting or twisting. If your pelvic floor is the point of weakness, we might have urinary incontinence. If that was a chronic problem, we might develop a prolapse. So it may not be glamorous to work the core out the way I'm describing it, but by incorporating all four muscles instead of just your abdominals, you will restore a balance that will still give you the aesthetics you want, but also much more functional strength. Okay, so there's a lot of talking, but the paying attention to this isn't hard. I just want you to do it a lot of times throughout the day today. So your best bet at finding and resetting the balance between these muscles is to pick a comfortable position either to sit or stand in. Now I'm sitting on the floor with my legs crossed. That actually might not be great for some people. So if you're not sure, just go to a chair that lets you sit erect. And you want to set your sit bones as the base of your sitting posture. Now if you're standing, body weight over your heels with your pelvis vertical neutral. And then you're going to stack up your ribs over your pelvis and your head right above your rib cage. Okay, so this alignment should make it easiest for you to feel the contraction. You can place your hands on either your abdominal wall or your lower rib cage as something to bring some sensation into your body. I actually kind of like my thumbs on my ribs and the rest of my fingers on my stomach, so I get both. So when you go into your breath, I want you to inhale through your nose and try to aim the air where we practiced last time, expanding the ribs three-dimensionally. Then you're gonna exhale through your mouth like you blow out a candle. And as you blow the air out, you should feel a gradual compression at your abdominal wall, as well as the feeling of the ribs hugging back in from the sides. So just feel that again as you breathe in, your ribs are gonna expand. You'll feel the abdominal wall soften, but not so much that you slump. You can still remain in your good posture. And then when you exhale, feel that gradual compression. So we get that change in pressure, helping you lift the diaphragm to push the air out. Now keep doing that, but let's work on some dual awareness. See if we can think of two muscles at once. Now when you breathe in, as your diaphragm descends, your pelvic floor is gonna relax a little. So you can think of it like an elevator just going down a floor. And then when you exhale, it draws back up and it'll feel like you had a drawstring right in the middle of the four bones I described, and it's lifting. And then as you inhale, you're releasing a little bit of that tension. And as you exhale, and lift it again. Now, if you've done Kegels for pregnancy, you're familiar with that act of like squeezing as hard as you can and release. I don't want it that hard, just like a little bit harder, a little bit less. So you can kind of feel its pliability more than its strength. And if you can't feel your pelvic floor muscles, try tipping forward just a teeny weeny bit, and that might make it easier to identify the muscle, especially closer to your pubic bone. Now, your multifidus, I don't have a great trick to just like manually engage it right now for our contemplation. But any exercises you've done with us so far in class where we've done like a reciprocal movement, like I'm just thinking of swimming because that was the exercise of the day recently. When I'm trying to stabilize my trunk against a reciprocal action, I am coordinating my multifidus to resist movement, and that's usually a job it does in coordination with our obliques, which is a muscle for another time. But if you remain in your good posture while you're working on the breath mechanics of the other three, your multifidus will play its role in stabilizing those segments of your spine. Now, those are all your core muscles described as muscles. I want you to remember that the idea of like regulating them to be a team is actually a concept that can work via your fascial system. So from deep to superficial in my body, just like from top to bottom and front to back, my fascia is one tissue that exists in between every other structure. So as it pertains to the core, the fascia actually links each of these separate muscle groups, so that sense of like a release and a contraction as a ball is really something that exists via the tension and compression within the fascia. And now back to your back, that's going to be important because that's a way to link those deep muscles and the deep fascia, even the fascia that's like very lightly around all the organs within the abdomen. But it's going to link it to something much more superficial, the thoracolumbar fascia, which is strong area of the fascia that helps to keep you erect. So we've got something deep working again with something superficial to kind of unite you when we go into our good posture. We're going to talk more about aligning those segments of the posture tomorrow. Okay, I'm sorry, that was a lot of learning today. Contemplate this, and then later on I'm going to send you a short workout of very easy warm-up exercises where you can apply this breathing principle to movement. Have a great day.